The movie begins with Defense Advanced Research Project Agency's researcher, Dr. Mark Klein, tasked to deploy in the Moldovan War along with his invented hyperspectral camera. He is technically needed in the war, for he knows how to operate the ray that can detect the military's supernatural force enemy. Because of that, Klein becomes interested in his mission and immediately flies to Moldova. Apparently, Klein received a call from U.S. military General Orland seeking assistance due to his creation of an advanced camera. The soldiers are having trouble combating the bizarre enemies, so General Orland hopes Klein will help them. Once Klein arrives at the U.S. military air base in Moldova, he meets General Orland. Klein then greets General Orland and says that he is the one who invented the helmet camera. Due to that, General Orland escorts him on the way to the inside. While walking, General Orland tells Klein the cause of war, revealing that the insurgency arises primarily due to military dictatorship. General Orland also says that the well-trained remnants are the ones who made the uprising and plan to turn it into a civil war. General Orland and Klein arrive at the facility in no time. But before they enter the room, General Orland reminds Klein that the helmet camera will be the US military's other business because, aside from the remnants, they are also fighting supernatural forces. Afterward, General Orland shows Klein the room where he will play a clip from a soldier's goggles. As General Orland plays the video, Klein immediately discovers a mysterious spectral light. Due to that, General Orland explains it may be an interference they caught from the 5 helmet cameras. But then Klein debunks his theory and says that it is something more than what he is thinking and that Klein will start figuring it out. General Orland then delivers Klein to CIA Fran Madison, who gives Klein a paper to sign before discussing his mission. Madison informs Klein that the signed document will serve as his sensitive compartmented information oath that acknowledges life in prison if Klein ever reveals anything about his task. Because of that, Klein marks it without further ado. Afterward, Klein and General Orland follow Madison to another facility, where they will discuss Klein's mission. General Orland is the first to begin their conversation, telling Klein that one of his veteran Delta Force soldiers, Davis, was killed in action by the spectral light during the raid in Mid-City. As evidence, General Orland plays a clip from Davis's helmet camera, which detected the spectral light because he was too close to it. After showing Klein the video, Madison reveals that they discovered more bodies of people who met the same fate as Davis. She then displays photographs of the victims, explaining that their internal organs had been frozen. Still, their skin had been scorched and corroded. On the other hand, General Orland thinks it could be an Aratare, or a ghost of war, a local legend he learned about from the city's youth. General Orland and Madison, though, want more than just their hints to support a theory. So, they start grilling Klein on his proposal to investigate whether or not the foe is a supernatural entity. Klein requests the data to work out his theory, but Madison refuses to give it to him. Out of frustration, he challenges Madison's working premise, only to learn that she has faith in her agency's speculation that their unseen foe might be a cloaking technology. Madison also speculates that it could be active camouflaged insurgent troops. However, Klein doubts believing her because no one but his own agency has ever developed cloaking technology. Unfortunately, Klein and Madison disagree with each other's theory, so Klein gives his way to Madison's supposition. He asks her how cloaking technology kills people. Madison answers that it is caused by shock delivered to the victim. Klein explains to General Orland and Madison that he observes biased theories in their assumptions. So, Klein begs them to test his theory, as they must determine what they must do without proof of their ideas. His work necessitates proof. Ultimately, Madison gives in to Klein's suggestions and makes his notion more of a statement. Klein then takes out a powerful hyperspectral camera as his theory to General Orland and Madison. He explains that it can aim for a more precise shot of the spectral foe because it captures visible and invisible images. Amazed, General Orland orders Klein to mount it on the top of Delta Force's vehicle and assigns him to operate it. Technically, Klein will accompany the soldiers during their mission in the city to help them see the enemy. The following day, Klein is mounting the hyperspectral camera when the soldiers suddenly appear and warn him to be careful while using their vehicle. But Captain Cabrera saves him by revealing to his troops that Klein is responsible for constructing their army trucks. As a result, the troops learn to keep their mouths shut and comply with Cabrera's directives to treat Klein with more respect. Later at night, Klein discovers from Cabrera that Madison will be with them on their combat mission. He also learns Madison is under pressure from her superiors because they keep asking for answers about the spectral foes killing people in Moldova. The day of the combat mission has arrived. But before departing the base, Klein, Madison, and the Delta Force hold a meeting. In the forum, Cabrera reveals that the group's purpose is to locate the Utah team, which vanished during the reconnaissance expedition the day before, and that they would be searching an apartment complex with 5 floors. Cabrera tells them to prepare for a battle with the insurgents and another enemy, whom they name hyperspectral anomalies. Upon arrival, the Delta Force enters the apartment building, leaving Klein and Madison in the truck to look out. Then, as they enter, they eventually discover dead bodies of the Utah team on every floor, along with the insurgents. However, they suddenly find a survivor from Utah team, Comstock, hiding under the ceramic bathtub. The Delta Force then asks what happened to them, but Comstock is still in shock and only keeps saying about the hyperspectral. Meanwhile, one of the soldiers, McFadden, tries to enter the dark room. Klein immediately orders Cabrera to make McFadden turn back. Technically, Klein is watching the soldiers using their helmet cameras inside the truck. As Cabrera commands McFadden to turn back, Klein suddenly sees the hyperspectral inside the darkroom in McFadden's helmet camera. Due to that, Cabrera orders McFadden to shoot it, only to learn that it cannot get killed by a regular gun. This causes Cabrera to panic as he, Klein, and Madison watch McFadden killed in action by the hyperspectral after passing through his body. Cabrera then calls for reinforcements to take down the hyperspectral. However, it only turns out to be a failure as the hyperspectral promptly kills most of the Delta Force. Now that they are ambushed by more hyperspectral, Cabrera immediately pulls them out of the apartment building. Once the Delta Force is outside, Klein begins operating his hyperspectral camera and shoots the anomaly clearly. Shocked, Klein slowly discovers the supernatural force enemy is in a human form. Yet, he still needs to figure out what kind of hyperspectral it is. On the other hand, Cabrera takes out a mortar to kill it but ends up freezing to death after the hyperspectral passes through his body. Shaken by the encounter, Klein quickly joins the other Delta Force members inside the vehicle. Klein asks Comstock how he made it through the hyperspectral as they flee the area. Still, Comstock claims no recollection of the event and that the tub was the only thing that kept him alive. As Klein continues to question him, they come over a minefield that renders their truck useless. Since such is the case, Delta Force, together with Madison and Klein, decides to ditch the truck and seek shelter at a nearby abandoned factory. Comstock is killed in the explosion that occurs outside it. Once inside, Klein operates the hyperspectral camera in the window to let the Delta Force see it. While watching, they learn that the hyperspectral anomalies are trying to chase them but notice that they cannot get into the factory. So, Klein looks at it and discovers that the hyperspectral anomalies are being stopped by a barrier of iron shavings. This causes Klein to suspect that they are not only the people inside and find two young girls hiding in a room full of protection and weapons. Clyde favors Madison as a translator because the girls don't speak English. Afterward, he begins asking the girl, Sari, who they are with, only to discover that they are alone and that Sari's father is the one who put the barricades outside. He also learns that Sari's father is killed by the hyperspectral while setting up the iron shavings to protect them. Eventually, Klein stumbles into multiple containers of iron shavings and figures out a way by instructing the Delta Force to turn their grenades into IEDs using it. Also, one Delta Force member should call the airbase to request backup and meet them at the extraction point. Afterward, Klein sets out to transform his hyperspectral camera into a searchlight. But before doing it, Klein explains to Captain Sessions and Madison that it can illuminate the hyperspectral anomalies in human eyes. Once done, the Delta Force brings the two young girls as they deploy to the extraction point. Since they are now stimulated with upgraded weapons, they also see that the hyperspectral anomalies have found their way to attack them, making the Delta Force flee the factory immediately. The Delta Force follows Sari's directions while they launch iron explosive devices into the hyperspectral. In doing so, the hyperspectral is slowed, and Delta Force safely gets to the extraction spot before backup arrives. However, the hyperspectral anomalies prove too powerful to defeat, and the reinforcements, including Sari's little sister, Bogdan, perish in combat. The last survivors were about to be killed when an unexpected military plane landed at the extraction spot and took everyone to safety. But before they go, Klein scatters the last of his iron shavings throughout the area to keep hyperspectral anomalies from devouring them. Klein, upon aboard the plane, is informed by the pilot that they are being sent to the refugee bunker under General Orland's orders. The military air bases have been invaded by hyperspectral anomalies, therefore, General Orland is moving the troops to a safe location. Upon arriving, Delta Force discovers that the bunker is run by the Allied Moldovan military and is fortified with 20 feet of concrete and steel. A secure place to take cover from the hyperspectral site. Afterward, Captain Sessions orders some Delta Force members to come with him as General Orland will arrive in the refugee bunker in a few minutes. When Captain Sessions hears General Orland's voice outside, he gives the order to the Moldovan soldier to open the gate. General Orland gathers Delta Force inside for a depressing discussion concerning the attack on their airbase and the team's hopelessness about destroying the hyperspectral. On the other hand, Klein is preoccupied with inferring the hyperspectral's nature and concludes that it is man-made and produced by using the Bose-Einstein condensate. He adds that it can be impeded by iron filings and cannot penetrate ceramic. To prove this, Klein explains that the ceramic bathtub ultimately saved Comstock because hyperspectral light cannot travel through it. He also cautions the delta force from touching hyperspectral, saying that doing so will result in instantaneous death. Hearing Klein's theory gave General Orlan some hope that they may survive. In light of this, General Orlan defers Klein's directives, in which the latter instructs the team to develop plasmic discharge weapons to rip the condensation apart. At night, Delta Force members construct massive weaponry. Then, General Orlan meets with Captain Sessions to plot an invasion of the Masarif factory, the origin of the deaths, and the hyperspectral source. Madison suddenly jumps in and reveals her findings, including photos of the factories and evidence that the plant is manufactured for the weapons research facility. In light of this, General Orlan has tasked Madison and Klein with infiltrating the facility to halt the hyperspectral anomalies. The next day, Delta Force begins their mission and travels to the Masarif factory. Upon arriving, the troops take up position up front to deal with the hyperspectral anomalies. Klein, Madison, Alessio, and Sergeant Toll head below to locate the lab's original source. However, Alessio and Sergeant Toll eventually get separated from Klein and Madison to fight off the hyperspectral inside. Due to that, Klein and Madison quickly locate the laboratory and discover humans on molecular levels used by scientists. Klein continues observing the laboratory until he learns that hyperspectral is seen as a human form because the scientists are scanning people on a molecular level and printing them in 3D out of condensate. Klein also discovers a catastrophic failure in the system that causes hyperspectral anomalies to escape into the laboratory. Due to that, Klein finishes off to activate the structure failure system and deactivates the condensate hyperspectral anomalies. After a successful operation, Klein and Madison follow the noise to the cellar. They discover incubators containing test subjects' brains and peripheral nervous systems. The movie ends with Klein successfully taking down the laboratory where scientists hyperspectral anomalies to use it as a war weapon. Despite Madison pleading with him not to unplug the lab incubator's tubes that control hyperspectral anomalies, he leaves the area without any trace. Also, Klein convinces Madison that he only needs to see the proof for himself and not give the government control because the bodies inside the lab incubator should be allowed to rest peacefully. In light of this, Madison lets Klein do as he pleases and watches as he turns down the power system in the central laboratory. With his task complete, General Orlan finally walks Klein to the military aircraft that will return him to Virginia. In contrast, the rest of the US and Moldovan military continue their work in Moldova. Thank you for watching. Subscribe for more videos like this to help the channel out. Have a nice day.